Hey, hi everyone. My name is Mugundan Mani. I'm a PM in the retail team managing the extensibility. So how many of you are like developer or like technical consultant? Okay. It's like anybody currently implementing retail, like doing some extensions? Okay. Or anybody planning to implement retail in the future, like maybe in the next 1 or 2 months? Okay. So we have like a mixed audience. Okay. So let's get started. So the main agenda for today is like I'm going to talk about like in the last spring release we did like a lot of enhancement in the retail extensibility. Basically we changed our extension pattern. Previously how we would have done is like you will taken our full source code and then you would have did some inline changes, right? Now we changed that pattern and said like going forward anything if you want to extend our solution it should be done using the extension pattern. So I will talk about like in that is like in the what's new section, and then I will talk about like what is the developer ALM story. So as a developer, like how you can get the retail SDK and how you can start the customization, and also a little bit talk about the different architecture. From the architecture point, we didn't change anything, but I will quickly go like what are the different extension points we have in our retail story. And then next I will mainly talk about the POS client extension, where we'll talk about the new extension architecture for the modern point of sale, and then we'll cover some of the patterns like what are the different ways you can extend the retail point of sale. So next I will talk about the CRT business logic and the channel database extension. So the POS is where you will do all the client side extension, and the next we'll talk about how you can extend our business logic so that like it can work from any different client. And at last, then at the end, so once you're done with the customization, I will walk through like how you can package and deploy the customization. So first let's talk about the what's new in retail extensibility. Okay. So before jumping into what's new, one important thing we did in the July release in the 2017, we introduced a new SKU called like a new version of the product called the Dynamics 365 for retail. It's nothing but kind of like a trimmed down version of the whole finance and operations SKU, where you can, if you are like only retail only customer, then you can get this Dynamics 365 for retail. The one important thing in this, like here everything is fully sealed, including the HQ, POS, channel DB, retail server, all the components including your back office is fully sealed. So if you want to do any extension, you should follow the extensibility pattern. No more like overlaying is supported. Okay. So that's the one big change we did in this queue. So any component here including the X++, it's like fully sealed, no overlaying is supported. Okay. So the other SKU, it's like the standard SKU, the finance and operation enterprise edition. So even in that SKU, one big change we did was like all the channel components is like fully sealed, but you can do the overlaying in X++, but still the channel components is like fully sealed. You will not be able to do any inline changes. So basically like you will get the new SDK and you will do the customization following the new pattern. So the starting from the July release, any retail extension should follow the new pattern. So basically like you will not allow it to do the inline code changes, because if you are like a AX 7.1 customer or the Dynamics 365 older customer, you would have seen our full solution, right? Now with the new SDK, you will not like see that solution, but we introduce a new extension pattern on how you can do the extension. So from the changes perspective, so if you go with any of this SKU and if you want to extend our retail component, the important thing you have to do is like you need to follow the extension pattern. So that's the main change, like you need to follow the extensibility pattern. Basically this is like the two SKUs I talk about. So within the Dynamics 365 for retail, we have like two options. So you can just go only with retail, say, because the finance and operation has like a lot of modules, right? Like for other project accounting and other stuff. So if you don't want all the other modules, you can just go with the retail alone, or you can choose the full finance and operation, but you can still go with the fully sealed version. So this box here, like this oval here, like has the full finance and operation, but all the modules are sealed. So no more overlaying in X++. But if you say like, hey, I want to do overlaying, there is no enough extension points available, then you can go with this unsealed one, which you can still do overlaying, but all the channel components are sealed. You need to follow the extension pattern. So that's an important change we did in this new release. Okay. Next, let me talk. So because a lot of them are asking questions like, hey, why you did this sealing? It's kind of like tough for us to now change our extensibility code. I will talk about like what are the main benefits why we did that sealing. previously there was no like unified pattern for how you extend the retail. There are like different components in retail, right? For example, the commerce runtime, there is a point of sale, there is a hardware station. So there was not like a unified pattern on how you can extend. So with the new model, what we did was like we changed everything to a kind of like a request response pattern. So now we have like a simplified customization model across all our retail stack. So everything now will follow like a request response pattern. So either you can like override our request, or you can do pre and post across. Even now you can do that in the modern point of sale. Okay, so we made it like a simplified customization model. Other important benefit here is the no code merge required. So previously when you want to upgrade, or if you want to take any hotfix, right, since you have done some customization, always you need to do a code merge. In some case it will be like a breaking change also, right? We would have like modified our code somewhere that would have caused your customization to break. So always you need to like somebody to merge the code, retest it, repackage it, right? So that's like a lot of customers and partners who are complaining like, hey, every time Microsoft issue hotfix, we need to do a code merge, redeploy it and test it. Suppose you are in the sale like doing the final UAT, and then you need to take a hot fix if it's like a big change, because all the retail hotfix are like binary based, which is like cumulative, right? So it's going to give you like lot of changes. So in that case you need to do a sit and do a code merge and retest all the functionality, which is like a very costly effort. That's why what we did was like with the new pattern, since you are going to do extension based on the extension pattern, you are not going to touch any of our code. So all your extension will be in the extension layer. So you no need to do any code merge or anything, right? So if you want to take a hotfix, just take that hotfix and apply it in your environment. You no need to do any code merge, or if you want to upgrade, you can easily upgrade from one version to other version without worrying about, hey, whether my customization will like work, do I need to like remerge or anything, right? So all those efforts will be gone if you follow the extension pattern. Other thing is the easy maintenance. Previously, like since you've done inline customization, you need to maintain our code as well as like your extension, right? Because both are like in the same layer or in the same class file. Now we have separated both the Microsoft code as well as the extension, right? So you no need to worry about maintaining our code. You just like you need to maintain your extension alone. So you can continuously service your extension or change any enhancement. Only you need to worry about your extension, and only you need to maintain your extension code. You no need to maintain the whole Microsoft source code, because previously in your source deploy you would have like added the entire POS solution, and you have been maintaining the whole source code, right? Now with the new model, you just need to maintain the extension. And the other thing is like if you want, you can always be on the latest and the greatest version, because if any hotfix comes or any upgrade, you can easily update it. You no need to worry. Just go to LCS, click whichever hotfix you want, and then you can apply it. You don't need to worry about, hey, I need to do a code merge or again validate it. So all those effort is gone. You can easily uptake it. That's the other main benefit. And the other thing is like previously if you are like a ISV solution, or suppose for in your POS you have bought some ISVs for a restaurant management or hotel management order, right? If you want to like change something, you need to again take the Microsoft code and then service it. Now with the new model, you can independently service your extension. So you change something, you can push whenever you want. You no need to like worry about whether the Microsoft code has changed. We made all our APIs kind of like a backward compatible. So we added some new tool in our dev layers and making sure like it doesn't break any API going forward. So we made it like a backward compatible tool. So you can now independently update your customization, as well as like you can take Microsoft also, like if you like sign up for like continuous update, we can also like push the update continuously, or you can on demand whenever update you want, you can take and apply it. You no need to do any code merge. That's a main reason why we did that code ceiling, to make sure like you get all the servicing and upgrade benefit, because this gonna take, because previously in all the other version, this is gonna take like considerable effort. Every time you have to do a code merge involved, do analysis, seeing like, hey, what has been changed and why it has been changed. Now you no need to worry about all of those. That's the main reason we did that ceiling. Also other benefit is like suppose we want to enhance something, say if there is some performance issue in product, so suppose if we want to change something, right? Even when we enhance something, we want to change the DB layer or something, because what we worry is like, hey, there is a customization. If we change something, it's going to break your customization, right? So now with this new model, we can also independently enhance the product and make sure your customization continuously work without any problem. That's the main reason we did the ceiling. Okay. So next I will talk about like the dev ALM. This is like the existing process. We didn't change anything, but from if somebody is like new, want to understand like, hey, how will I get the retail SDK and how will I start the development? So first, like you need to get the developer VM. There is two options to get the developer VM. So one, you can host it in LCS, create LCS project, and then you can host our latest environment, which is be managed, use your Azure subscription. or whenever you buy some license also, you will get like the free one dev environment, right? So in that dev environment, you can do your customization. Or because by default, the LCS project will give you like only one developer environment. So if your team has like more than 2 developers or 3 more developers, so what you can do is like you can download our VHD, which is like pre-configured with all the required component ready to customize. You can just take the SDK, download that VHD, host it locally wherever you want in your environment, and then you can start the customization. It has already pre-installed TypeScript or the client SDK, all the required DL, everything is like pre-configured. You can just start the customization immediately by downloading that VHD. The other thing is, within that VHD, the next step as for a developer, hey, I want to start the customization, right? For any retail module, you need to take the second part is the retail SDK. So which has like all our APIs for you to extend. Since now we move towards more like a binary extension model, so in the SDK we added like lot of APIs for you to customize. Say for example, in your scenario, you want to do like add item to the cart, or you want to check price, or you want to get products. So all those we made it as a API, so you can consume our API and do the customization. And also we added a lot of dev tools also in that VM. For example, we added like a analyzer tool. Suppose you want to customize one of our workflows, say during add item to cart, it has multiple steps. First, it fetches the item. Second, it gets the price. Third, it checks like is there any discount rate. So you want to customize any of that workflow. Previously, there was like source code, so you can put breakpoint and understand where exactly to customize, right? Now there is no source code, so you need to understand which workflow, how will I customize, right? So these dev tools, the commerce analyzer tool will tell you like, hey, this is the sequence of steps it's getting called. So you want to customize any of this part, then just you need to take that request and do the customization. And also all the SDK is fully integrated with MS Build. So you can do like a VSTS configuration to do automated build. So every night you can set up a build and drop it. And also you can do packaging with that MS Build tool. And last thing is again the packaging and deployment. So previously there were like multiple packages, one for AOS payment package, one for retail server package, cloud POS package, there are different packages. Now with the new model, it's like just one combined retail package. When you do run the MS Build script, it's going to generate you just one combined retail package. So which you can upload to LCS. It has like all the changes, including you can include the AX changes also, as well as the payment changes or anything you can include as one combined package. So we made it as like a retail deployable package. Even when you go to LCS and then try to upload a folder, you just see that one option like retail deployable package. These are some of the changes we did. That's how to, as a developer, how you can, or a technical consultant, how you can get a VM and how you can use the retail SDK. Okay. So next I will talk about, this is the existing extension architecture, all up like the retail it's not the retail full architecture, it's just for the extension architecture. So I'm going to talk about like, hey, what are the different components when you are trying to extend. So I will talk about this architecture. Okay. So the first thing is before going to the retail, I will talk about the retail proxy. So the retail proxy is the one which decides like, hey, MPOS is going to talk to the retail server or it's going to talk to the offline system. Retail server is nothing kind of like a web server where like, because MPOS is kind of like a thin client application, right? So it needs all the business logics, everything is hosted in the retail server. So in case of you connected online, MPOS will talk to the retail server. Hey, for example, whenever you click like add item cart in the operation POS, it's going to ask the retail server, hey, tell me the price of this item, give me that item description, right? So in online mode, it will connect to the retail server. In case of offline, it doesn't have connectivity, whatever, then the retail proxy will locally talk to the locally deployed CRT here. So the retail proxy is the one which decides, say, whether should I connect it to online retail server or should I connect it to the commerce runtime. And from the customization point, so if you are doing any customization, you need to like tell the proxy, hey, there is some offline changes also deployed or there is some online changes also deployed. So you will use the retail proxy generator exe to generate automatically the proxy for you. Because without the proxy, MPOS doesn't know like, hey, where to connect. So this proxy is the one which tells you how to generate it. Then there is a retail server. So suppose if you are doing something like a new customer, say you are doing your own warranty management scenario or you are doing your own delivery management scenario, POS need to understand that API and call it, right? Because all your business logic will be there in CRT, but from POS to call, POS always talks to the retail server, right? So you need to create like a retail server extension, which internally calls the CRT. So in my code flow and demo, I will show you like, hey, how you can do the retail server extension and then the commerce runtime extension. Okay. So this has like different component like the authentication module. So before creating any retail server extension, you can specify the authentication. It can be like anonymous. Suppose for example, if you go to an e-commerce site, you can get all the product information, right? So which is like an anonymous API. But to get the order details, it is like authenticated API. So you can specify the roles and everything. And also there is a redirector which knows like which CRT request call, and this is like the controller which maps with the CRT. Okay. Yep. So next I will little bit explain about the CRT architecture, and then this is the POS architecture, modern POS architecture. So CRT does like two main layers. So one is the business logic layer and other is the data layer. So the data layer is the one which gonna talk to DB. For example, when you save something or when you're gonna read something. So we have like different data services. For each one we created like a different views also. For example, there is a SQL Server view which is kind of used in the regular mode, and there is a SQLite in case suppose if you are using a phone version. So we have kind of like a minimized view which doesn't have like, because in the phone you cannot show all the big UI, right? So it's kind of like having like a minimized view, and that is shared, which is something shared between both the full version, the tablet version as well as the mobile version. So we have the SQL. Currently we are not going to much use the SQLite, so we are using only the DataX SQL Server API. Similarly, the business logic, it has two parts like the services and the workflow. So the services is one, like for example, customer service is the one which has like add customer, delete customer, update customer, or get customer transaction. So a service which has like bunch of related operation, and the workflow is the one which defines like, hey, what is the sequence of step I should do? So when I click save customer, so what are the steps I should do? Okay, first I should save it to the channel data locally, and then I need to save it to the headquarters. So the workflow is the one which defines the sequence of step. From the extension point, you can override at any of this level. I can change the override the workflow, or I can override the services, or I can override the data service. So you can customize any of this one. So you will not be able to customize any of our framework, but I think it's not required. Only you can customize the workflow and service. And the other thing is each of this also, all the workflow and as well as the data layer supports the triggers. So before doing something, you can do a pre-trigger, or after done, you can do a post-trigger. So for example, after saving customer, I want to send my information to a CRM system, or I want to save my additional properties. So all those you can do it in the triggers. Okay. So next I will quick little bit talk about the modern POS. Yeah, other important thing here is there is a MEF framework which is used to load all the extensions. So there is a configuration source file where you will specify like, hey, these are the list of customization I did for the business logic. So you will specify it here, and this framework which reads this file and loads all your extension. Okay. So the next is the modern POS. We didn't change from the architecture point. We didn't change any of this in the starting from 2012. The AX 2012, we didn't change any of the architecture. Still, it uses the MVC pattern, and then there is a data access proxy. So for example, the previous proxy I talked about in the previous slide, this is where the retail server proxy is there, which going to decide, hey, okay, which server I should talk. Should I talk to the local one, or should I talk to the retail server? And similarly, there is a hardware layer, because CR business logic is not going to talk to the hardware. POS is the one who is going to talk. So whenever you complete a transaction, I need to print a receipt, I need to open a cash drawer, I need to understand the barcode scanner. So we have the devices layer within that POS. Similarly, on the top, it's all like the UI controllers. For example, the customer added its screen will have a view, and there is a corresponding controller, and there is a view model which has the business logic. And one important thing in POS is like everything kind of operation. If you see our modern POS application, right, everything you will see as like a tile, right? It's all called as like an operation. So this is the operation where if in AX you can create operation and then add it to the screen layout designer. So this operation will call the operation manager to understand, okay, this operation need to now perform this one, and it has the activity also. Because within the operation also, as I said, like if you say like get price activity, which has like multiple stuff like get price, get discount, get the best discount. So all those will be defined within that activity. In CRT, it's like workflow. In POS, we call it as like the activity. Okay. So this is like a high level, the extension architecture. So basically when you are extending, you will either extend the client, or you will extend the business logic CRT layer, or as I mentioned in the previous slide, if you are doing something new, because our POS need to understand that if something new service, how will POS know to call? So you will customize the retail server, and the other last thing you will customize is the proxy layer to tell POS, hey, should I connect online or offline? So these are the 4 different components you will be customizing. based on your scenario. You don't need to customize all, it depends on your scenario. In some cases, it's only be business logic, you will modify only CRT. In some cases, just I want to add a column, you just modify the pause. So it depends on your scenario. Okay. No, it's, so the question is like, what is this grayed out boxes here, the client broker, the hardware station peripherals. Basically, these ones are like platform specific. For example, this client broker is mainly for the Windows one. If this client broker, you will not be able to use it in the other version. So the whatever here in the green is kind of like a platform agnostic. It can work in Android or it can work in iOS, but these guys will work only in the Windows. Because this client broker is the one in case of offline, how will you talk to the CRT it's decided. So you'll not be able to customize these guys. And also it's platform specific and you'll not be able to custom. All the peripherals is also, because how will you connect to a hardware in iOS is different than how you connect in Windows, right? Because they have like a different API. So you need to like change little bit the logic. That's why I put like in a different color. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about the POS client extension. So this is the new extension architecture. This is applicable only for the July 20, before going here. So previously, if you want to customize, say in one of the POS view, if I want to change something, you would have directly taken this views here on the POS architecture and then taken the exact source file and then just add a new column, go to the HTML file, add a new column, right? That's how you would have done customization. Or if you want to modify some of the activity or steps in between, I want to show a message, dialog, something, you would have just taken our activity file here and then modified. That's how you do the customization, right? Until the previous version, that's how you will do the customization. So with the new model, starting from the July spring release, so we completely changed the overall architecture is still the same, but how will you extend is completely changed. So now you follow like the new extension pattern for you to extend. So what we introduced something called like the POS SDK. Previously there was no something called POS SDK. So in the spring release, we introduced this new POS SDK. So we kind of like put like 3 patterns for you to extend within the POS. So one is something called create, where you want to completely create a new functionality, where you don't want to modify our core system. I want to create something new. For example, I want to do my own warranty management scenario, or I want to do my own delivery management scenario. I don't want to customize any of your workflow, but I want to create something new in your POS. Say you are some vertical specific, I want to add some restaurant management on top of the POS. So you can, in that case, you can do your own functionality create. So within that create, you can create your new views, or you can do a controls and different controls you can do, or you can do some dialogues. You can do request response APIs. I will little bit talk about later what is a request response API, and then you can do your customization. You can localize it. You can do logging and whatever, and also you can add like custom controls, custom fields, and that's on create, right? And the next one is consume. Consume means like, so for example, in your new extension, you don't want to write everything on your own, right? You want to consume some of our API. Say for example, let's take that warranty management scenario. When a customer buys warranty, you want to add some service item and get the money for that, right? To add for that, you need to add an item to cart. In that, you don't want to write all the code how to add item, right? So in that case, you can consume our APIs or our controls or our dialogues in your extension. So that's what consume means, like consuming our APIs or our metadata in your extension. And the third one is the extend. So where you want to extend our workflow, say for example, right, after item is added to cart, you want to do something additional. So you can put a trigger and extend our functionality. Or in some case, you will say like, hey, by default say let's take a payment example. So by default, we talk to a particular payment provider and send some information, right? So now we are saying like, hey, I don't want to use your payment service or your payment workflow. I want to do everything on my own. But I don't want the standard system to work, so I want to override it. So you can completely extend our workflow also. So under the extend, you can do like extend our views. So for example, our customer search, you want to add custom columns, or you want to like hide some column, or you want to add some new button. So you can do that like by extending our view. Similarly, you can do triggers. You can override all our request or operations. So when I mean request responses, like when I click get price, it's actually called as like get price request. When I click add item, it's like get item request. Similarly, when I change quantity, it's like get change quantity request. So on change quantity, I do want to do something different. You can then override our request. Also, we added like templated dialogues. So for example, you want to create your own customized dialogue, you can use this guy. And the last one is the POS UI SDK. Basically, like, because POS has its own styles and pattern, right? So if you are in your extension also you want to follow our own pattern, own styles, then you can use our POS UI SDK to consume our CSS styles and knockouts and themes. Okay, this is on the POS SDK side. Now from the extension side, one important change we did is previously all extension need to be together. Say for example, there is a partner who is doing extension and also the customer like bought like one more ISV solution. Previously you need to merge all together and there should be always a partner will maintain both the code, right? Now we can have extension independently. There can be extension 1 up to extension, any number of extension you have, and all can be like separated. You no need to like merge between the extension. So as a customer can hire a partner to do some customization. Also you can buy some ISV solution, right? Previously like the partner will merge and maintain. Now you no need to do all those. You can independently maintain the extension. So I can independently service extension 1 or independently I can service the extension 2. And there is in the bottom on the extension there is the extension list where you will specify like, hey, these are the 10 extension I have. Whenever POS, it will go and check the extension list, seeing like how many extension you have, and then it will load it. You can later say like, hey, I don't want to load extension 2 and 3, I just want to load extension 1 and 5. So all those you can do it from the extension list. So this is the new POS extension architecture. So later I will show you like how you can customize it, and within that view also what and all the extension pattern we can do it. So next I will talk about like the POS extension patterns. Okay. So we as I said, like we categorize extend, create and consume. So let's get to like little bit deeper within the extend, what I can do. Like extend is something you are extending our functionality. So first on the view side, POS pages, you can add like, so if you see on the right hand side here, you can add your own custom app bar button. So if you see your POS pattern, there is always like app bar. So where you can add like lot of new buttons, or you can customize our column. So for example, each page you will see like a data list. You can completely change that column set, or you can drop your own control within that our views. Okay. And something is like code based, and some screens are like, for example, the transaction screen. It's kind of like a configuration driven screen where you can use our designer to drag and drop your custom control or drag and drop your columns. I will later show that in the demo. And from the workflow wise, other extension within that extension you can do is like you can put triggers like pre and post before any of our operations. For example, like before closing shift you want to do something, before getting price, before changing quantity, anything you can do in a pre and post, or you can completely override our workflow. As I said, like, hey, let's take another example. So we are going to call like a particular inventory system AX to get the inventory information, right? In case if you are maintaining an inventory in a different system, you can override our workflow. So you can do that also. Or like other example when you override is like, say generally when you sell a serialized item, you want to check the serial quantity available. Currently by default we'll check it in the AX database, but if you want to check it in a different system, then you can override our workflow. So these are the two patterns like supported like within that extents. You can either modify our pages or POS views, or you can modify our workflow. Within that one, you can, as I said, like these are three things. And then in the workflow, you can do triggers and override. Okay. So I will quickly show a demo on like all of these different patterns. How will you modify the view and how will you modify the workflow? Just give me a second. It's connecting to the VM. 1 second. So basically I'm going to show that what are the 5 patterns I showed you. Right? I will show a demo for all of those 5 patterns. How will you can customize it. So first I will show you like how you can add a custom app bar button. Okay. So let me. So this is the modern POS application. So I have customized this application to add those 4 or 5 patterns what you said. So first let me show you like hey, how you can add a custom app bar button. So I added that in the product details screen. So let me search for the product. Okay. So for example, if you see like all this custom button here, let me select any one of the product. So if you see all these are like custom app bar button I have added here. So for example, quick compare, navigate to sample views, all these are like the custom button I have added. Okay. So this was the I was mentioning, this is our existing view. So you can customize this app bar to add your new own button. Okay. If I go to the code and show you. So one important thing is like we introduce something called the manifest file. Okay. So let's take, this is coming from the sample extension. So here in the manifest, first you need to tell POS, hey, there is an extension in the app bar button. So for example, that is the simple search view. So here you will say like, hey, I'm extending product app bar command, and this is the logic where that code file is there. Okay. So I can navigate to this file. For example, it is under sample extension, view extension. So if I go to the view extension, under this there is a sample extension. So our view name is like the search view. Let me collapse everything. Under sample extension, if you go to view extension here, and then under the search, you will see that simple search view. So for example, this is where I mentioned like how will you add we added the quick command, the button quick compare button, right? So we'll specify the logic here, what is the logic I need to add and what is that button name. So POS will go to the manifest file here, and then okay, come back and here say like, hey, okay, in the search, there is a navigate to sample extension view command. So it will look for this file, and then it will add that. For example, it will look for this file here, what are the same logic, and then see what is the logic here, and then it will add it. This is the new one we introduced. So now if you do any extension in POS, you need to specify that in the manifest file. Okay. So previously there was no such concept. You will directly go to that products view and add it. Now with the new model, there is a manifest. So why we did this, like in POS, whenever we load the extension, we'll come and check this file. Is there any extension found in this file? Then we'll load that extension. Okay, the next I will show you like how you can add like a custom column. I will show the pattern how you can add custom column using the screen layout designer. Okay. I already opened the screen layout designer. Let me close this guy. So yeah, I can right click, customize. For example, in the transaction screen, I'm going to add like a new column. You can customize. Right click and then click customize. So you will see like by default we added like bunch of custom columns here, and then I can select here I want to add like custom. I already added like custom column 1, so you can select here and then move the custom column and then click OK. So now you need to tell in the screen layout, now you configure the custom column. So now you need to tell POS like, hey, this is the custom column I want to add it. So you will go to the manifest. Let me minimize this guy. So you will go to the manifest, and then under it's actually the same pattern as I said, like you are extending our view, right? So you will put like extend, and then you say like, hey, in the main cart view, I'm going to add like a new custom column. So you will say like custom column 1, and where is the logic for that? So this is where you will say like this is the module path logic for that. So in your extension under cart, so you will say like, hey, there is a line grid we are extending, and then you will say like this is the custom column 1. So the logic I put in just like in my case, I just putting the cart line, show the cart line number, so as a custom column. So if I go back to POS here, so if I go to the transaction screen, so now you see this custom column has been added here. So if I add like any product here, so you will see that line number. So this is a custom column. So this is the pattern you will follow. Like if I want to add some custom column here, you will do it. Similarly in the product search screen as I showed previously. So you can see if I added like a custom column here. So here also I added a custom column to show the rec ID. So you can add like custom. So all these screens are coming from code. So in the manifest you specify like, hey, I'm going to add a custom column here in the product search screen. This is the custom column. Okay. And one important thing we did with this, like in the samples to help the developer, right? Let me select one of the product. So we added like a sample extension view screen here. Basically, this is just like in the sample you will see it. So this has like all our APIs, some of our sample APIs and all our controls and everything. Right? So it will show you like, hey, if I want to use the void cart line API, so from your extension you want to void a line, you can see like, hey, what is the logic to void cart line? So we'll have like written the sample code here. Okay, this is the code you should write. So for all our APIs, we have put like a sample here in this page. So you can refer if I want to add a new app bar button, how will I do it? Or if I want to add like a new pivot control, or if these are like different controls available. So if I want to add like a numeric numpad in my extension, you can see like this is the how you should add it. So we have given the sample code here for all of the different scenario. So you can refer this page, and also there is also like other sample extension view we added. This more for a developer to quickly help you if I want to show like I want to show like a templated dialog. So where you can put like this sample will help you to understand how you can create like a customized own dialog, right? Similarly, like if you want to use our datetime control, how will you use it? Or if I want to use my toggle switch in the extension, so you can follow this sample and understand it. Okay. So the previously what the other thing in our new pattern we said like so. I showed how to add the app bar button, how to add custom column. The last one I said was like, hey, how will you add custom control, right? So I will go to the product search screen. If I go to the product details, so if in our existing view, the other thing you can do is like you can add a own custom control. So I showed how to modify a column app bar button. So now you can use this pattern to understand, hey, how I can add a custom column. So for example, in this page, we completely added like a new custom control to show the product availability information. It was not there in the out of the box product, but you can add a custom control here and then show this information. If I quickly go to the code, exactly on the product details view. So if I go here on the simple product details view, so this is the availability panel as we added as a custom control. So we can later check the sample code like, hey, or we can, for example, this is the column information we added, and there will be like a HTML file which just will use our data list controls. For example, here it just uses our existing control. So in your new extension also you can use our controls, and then we can map it here, write the required logic here. So in the manifest I will mention like there is a custom control for this page, and then you can do it. And the other one, the next one in the extent I'm going to show you the last two things was the triggers. So how will you add a pause trigger, right? So there is a sample here. So when the sample I took was like whenever you suspend a transaction, say you want to print a receipt, right? So if you check the suspend transaction trigger sample here, okay. So return code, like so you can put triggers here, say like I'm going to extend the suspend transaction trigger, and it is extending from this particular trigger. So you can extend this one and write your own logic. So this is how you will do the pause triggers. So you can, triggers is now available for all different operation. Anything you do in pause, it has like a trigger. You can do a pre-trigger or like a post trigger. So this sample will help you like how you can do the trigger. So the last one in the extend is you want to completely override our flow, right? So for that I will show you like the payment sample code. Okay. By default the payment has like 3 or 4 methods, right? By default when you click swipe the card, it will do authorize, or it will do a capture, or some case if you void, it will again call those, right? So if you want to like override our authorize flow, so just you need to implement our request handler. Basically in the manifest you will tell like, hey, we are going to override the authorize request handler. We are creating extension here, so we'll specify that here, and then here you will do a execute, and then you can write your whatever the logic you want. So you don't want to use our flow, you can use this pattern, and then you can do the extension. So that's how you will override our request flow. Okay, let me switch back to the deck. Okay, so it showed demo like how you can add a custom app bar button, custom column, custom control, and triggers, and how you can override. Okay, so the next demo I'm going to show you like, hey, how you can completely create a new functionality, right? So within that create, either you can completely create everything on your own, and also within that create you can consume our functionality. So for example, I'm going to create like a new view, and I want to create like a new operation, or I can create some sequence of workflow steps. Also within that create, you can do your own dialog, or you can do your own operation, you can do own handlers. Handlers is like nothing but each operation will have multiple steps, so you can do all those. And also in your own view also you can do custom control. And in the consume part, you can consume our APIs. So for example, when I mean APIs like say void line or like get price information, all those we made it as a API. So in your extension, in any case, you want to say void a line or you want to change quantity. So you can use our APIs and then do it. So to execute all that, we added like a runtime. So there is like post xdk.runtime. You can call our runtime to change any of the workflow. And also within that consume, we exposed all our controls. So and I showed in the sample view, right? You will see all our controls. So out of the box, POS comes with like 15 to 20 controls, right? You want to reuse those controls. So for example, the data list, the numpad or the pivot button. If you want to reuse any of our controls, you can use that, consume that in your extension. And also you can consume our styles. So next I will quickly show a demo of like how we can create a new view and then new operation and how we can define the sequence of workflow here. And also I will show you like how we can consume our APIs. Okay, let me switch back to the VM. So I added a new operation called store hours, which is nothing but like show the store opening and closing hours. So I added like a new operation button here. So in the designer, you will add this operation, specify a operation ID. Then within that, when I click a new operation, I'm just showing like created like a new view, which is going to tell about like what is my store opening hours and closing hours. So all this is like I created an entity in AX, like a new extended table in AX, and then pushed the information to channel DB, and also create like a CRT extension, like how to fetch this information from DB. POS just gonna call the proxy, hey, give me that store hours information, so it will call CRT and then show that in the new view. And also within this sample, so this how I'll show later in the code how will you create new view and operation. So other thing I said, like in our sample, if you want to consume our dialog or show a templated dialog, so I added like a templated dialog here. So if I click it, it will show me like a template. This is like kind of a custom dialog you can create on your extension. So if I want to change the store opening hours and closing hours, so I can click this guy, and then I can say I can change my hours to something, and then if I click update, it's going to update both locally the channel database as well as it will update in the HQ also, so that if any other store views this information, they will also see the updated information. So this is how you can create a new view. I will quickly show this in the code. So what I did for this scenario is like I completely created like a new sample here, store hour sample. So again, this will also have a manifest. It will say like in the manifest, I'm going to create like a new templated dialog, and I'm going to create like a new view, and then I'm creating like a new operation. These are the three things I showed, right? I created a new operation. So we'll specify the operation ID, and then where is the handler for that operation which executes the business logic. Similarly, the other one is like, hey, what is the view information and what are the columns and view details, right? And then the templated dialog information. Okay, so if I go, so this is how you will create the manifest here, and then the view is nothing like a straightforward. It will have like a HTML file. So for example, in the HTML file, it will just have like our data list control. That's it, because we just add a grid, right? And then there will be a corresponding TS file which will have the logic. So creating a view is like straightforward, just create HTML file and then have the corresponding TS file to have the required logic. Okay. So the next I will show within that how you can create like a new operation, right? So we added like a new operation. So for each store hours operation, generally for each operation, it will have like a request, because now I said like we formed like a unified pattern, right? Like a request response pattern. So we'll have like a operation request here. Okay. And then there will be like a handler. For the handler is the one where you have the exact business logic, which will have the execute here. And then there is a factory. So these are the three things you will do. Like whenever you create a new operation, you will have the request file, and then you will have the logic, which is the handler, which has like sequence of step. And then there is a factory. So factory is the one which links between the operation and then the handler. So factory is the one when you click that operation button, so how the code knows like, hey, which is the logic I should call. So factory has that information saying like for this operation, this is the handler. So all this is like completely done as extension without like touching our core POS app itself. So for any case, I didn't like touch anything on the core POS project. So everything has been completely done as extension. So previously you need to take to this POS app project and then modify it. With the new pattern, you no need to modify any of this core POS. You can do everything like in the extension. Technically, like the new thing we introduced was the manifest, and how will you change a little bit from the logic wise, like how will you write the TypeScript, it's all like the same pattern. Okay, so this is how like I showed you like how you can do the template, how you can do a view, and then how you can do a new operation. Okay, so the last thing I want to show here is like also the view. For example, in this POS view, if you look at this sample, it has like the same styles and pattern as our code, right? So we consumed our existing styles and CSS. Either you can completely do it to your own design. For example, the color, theme, branding, everything is like same as our POS screen. So I consume the POS UI SDK. Either you can do your own styling or you can consume our UI SDK to have the same styling here. Okay. So this is the new sample, like how we can create like a new functionality. Okay. So we'll switch back to the deck. So we saw like how we can create a new view, handler, operation, templated dialogues, custom control. Like I didn't show it because I showed you like in the previous version, you can extend and use the custom control. So basically the runtime which one execute, you can consume our controls. For example, in that new view, I consumed our data list controls and our styles. Basically the Microsoft styles and controls, I have consumed it. Okay. So this is like the different patterns you will extend for the POS. Either you can create new or you can extend our functionality. So the next I want to quickly show the new one we did is called the customer attributes. So previously to add new field to the customer master, you need to modify channel DB and do it, right? With the new framework, what we did is like we enhanced the attribute framework to add like custom fields to the customer master. I will quickly show a demo. So for example, now if I click add customer here, say I want to create like a new customer. In my custom scenario, I want to add like lot of custom fields. So for example, we added like an attribute section here. So in your case, you can define what all the custom information, say I want to capture marketing information. So all this new field, these are all like added as a configuration. You don't need to change any code. So you can just go to the attribute framework and change it. So what you need to do is like just go to AX. So first in the attribute group, you will create attribute group. Say for example, for this one, I created like the customer attribute group. So where you will just go on list of attributes, what are all the attributes you want to add. So for example, I added the marketing email. You can specify the types also, whether it's a Boolean or string. Based upon the metadata here, the UI will automatically render. If it is string, it will show a text box. It is a yes or no, it will show a toggle switch. So you can define attributes. And then in the retail parameters, so you will link this attribute group. So under the general tab, you will link this particular attribute group. And then if you run the customer job, so automatically POS will show all these attributes for you. You don't need to write any code to do it. That's why we extend the customer attribute framework, the standard product attribute framework to support this extension for customer also. The product attributes just read only, but this you can use for both reading and edit also. You can update also the attributes. Okay. That's the other, why we did this was we don't want to like you to write a lot of code in doing this kind of simple scenario. That's why we extended the attribute framework. Okay. Let me switch back to the deck. The next thing we did was like we extended the same framework for the orders also. So for example, the other common scenario we found everybody was customizing during sales order creation. I want to capture some additional field, or during my cash and carry transaction, I want to create like some more fields, right? So what we did was like we extended the same attribute framework to support the order scenario also. I will quickly show a demo on that. So if I go to AX, at the channel level, so for example here in the Houston, right, under the attributes, so you can click the sales order attributes. It works for both cash and carry, or the customer order, or the e-commerce order, or even the call center order. So you can click and set the it's exactly the same lookup of the attribute group. So you can add bunch of attributes and then you can set it here and save it. So your channel now support all these attributes. One good thing both for the customer attributes and order attributes, either you can set the attributes directly in the HQ also, or well as in the POS also. So for example, now if I want to set this attributes value here directly in the HQ, so you can go to the sales orders. Let's say for example, on the order attribute, I added like attribute like resume quantity something. So for example, you can select this last order I already created. And then in the retail tab, now we added something called the retail attributes. So where you will see that list of attributes configured under that attribute group, and then you can set value directly here. Or based on your some scenario, you will say like, hey, there is no direct UI required. I want to do something based on my business logic. I have to write code also. So for that also you can extend it. So
I added like a CRT sample here. So for an example, the transaction attribute, we want to set transaction attribute, right? So as after like I suspend the transaction, I want to set some attributes. So you can extend one of our CRT trigger here and then set the logic here. For example, for whenever the suspend is called, this trigger will get execute, and then it's going to call like, hey, I've set transaction attribute. So on suspending the transaction, I can set some attribute the values yes or no. So you can do it through code also, or do some more business logic. So the advantage of using this attribute now is like you no need to create new channel extension table, or you no need to modify the AX to add a new table, or you no need to modify the AX UI to also add, and everything is like automated. Previously you would have created extended table everywhere, configure CDX. So now all those is kind of like automated. We want like you to reduce the number of lines we code. That's why we extended the attributes framework. Currently it supports for customer and then the transaction. So later it will be extended for other entities. Okay. Let me go back to the deck. Yeah. So the question is like, if you want like add the extension properties or?
Yeah. So like, so you needed to add a field that needed to be filterable by not grid. Does that mean someone for that? Right?
Yeah.
So you still do it the old way. Is that the point?
Yeah, because one good question. So the question was like with attributes, can I add like some more filter, or if I want to search by attributes? For some scenarios, attributes is not like applicable for all different scenarios. For example, in the customer master, I added the attributes, right? Let us say like, hey, my field should come from a lookup master. In those cases, we will not be able to use attributes. For those scenario, you can use the extension properties. It's kind of the old way, where you can create a channel DB extension, add those fields and add it to the map. So we still support the extension property. If something simple, we just want to store some field and show it in the UI, you can use the attributes. If you are like more complex logic to be written, then you can still use the extension properties. Okay. And other important good thing with the attribute is like here for the customer master also, it shows up in all the. So here you can add automatically this attribute will show up in the customer added screen. Also in the customer details we added a section. Similarly in the customer panel in the transaction screen. So now everything can show these attributes automatically. Also we wrote some sample like how to use this attribute and show as a column, but search we didn't do it yet, but still search can also be implemented, but it's still, if you want search by attributes, we generally recommend like go with the extension properties, because searching by attribute is a little bit more complex. So based on your scenario, you can choose either I can go with attributes or I can just go with the standard extension fields. Okay. Let me go to the next one. So we saw the order attributes. Similarly, it worked for call center also, and even in the call center form, there is a UI. Same for customer also. If you go to the customer retail tab, so there is attributes, so you can set it in the HQ also. Okay. So this is mainly to simplify you don't need to modify all the channel DB in case for simple scenarios, so you can go with this attributes. Okay. So the next I'm going to talk about like how, so we extended POS, right? So now we need to do, even in the store as view, I fetched some information DB, right? POS doesn't do any business logic, it's just going to call some API. So I will show how you can extend CRT and then the retail server. Also we changed some of the new patterns in the channel DB. So I will show you like how you can extend the channel DB and what is the new pattern. So CRT is the same, we didn't change from 2012, the same pattern. You can either completely create like a new service for your business scenario, or you can do pre and post triggers, or you can create a new request response handler. That's for something creating new, right? If you want to override or change our functionality, as I said, like, hey, I don't want to look in the inventory for AX, I want to look it in my third party system, or I want to look for currency exchange rate not in AX, I want to call a web service. So in those cases, either you can override our request, or you can just override the handler. So I will quickly show a demo of how you can create a new service and how you can override it. So first I will show how you will quickly create a new service. For example, in the store as it's completely a new sample I showed you, right? For example, here. This is completely new functionality, right? So in a view, we are fetching store information. So I'm going to show you like what I did in CRT to get this information. So if I go to the code here, so I completely created like a new sample store hours here. It has nothing, just like the entity information, and then there is a store hour data service class, which is just gonna call the DB. So when POS calls this request, it will call the DB, it will execute this request, get store day hours,
So if you see that, it's just going to call the SQL to get that information. So previously, like, another thing we did was like when I click the update button, it updated the service, right? So there is update service here. So you will write those service which will gonna update both AX, as well as it will call the HQ also, and then it will update it. So for example here, I'm calling the HQ method transaction service client is the HQ, I call it, and then I will update it. I will also update the local DB also. So this how will create like a new CRT service. Okay. POS cannot directly call the CRT service, right? It needs that something like a web API to call it, because POS directly cannot execute business logic on its own. It will call the web service. So for that, you need to create like a new retail server extension. So I will show you how you can create a new retail server extension. So here I created the sample here. So whatever the retail server you change, it will be exposed as a web API. So any client can call it either from your mobile or your from iOS app, any client, this will be exposed as a service. So anybody can call it. So this service has nothing here. If I go inside this guy, I will say like, hey, this is the method I'm going to expose, get the store information, update the store as information. These are the two methods I'm going to expose as a web service URL. So POS will call this URL, right? So here if you see the business logic for this guy is there under here, all the business logic is not, it's just going to call the CRT. For example, I'm here, because this is just like a wrapper, it doesn't do any business logic, it's just going to take the request from POS and call the business logic. So all the business logic, we wrote it in the CRT. So that's how you will create like a new retail server API to call the business logic. So from the customization pattern wise, anything related to UI, you will do it in the client. Any business logic something, you will change it in the CRT. Okay. Business logic, or if something a new service, you will do it in retail server. Business logic, you will change it in the CRT. So this is how you will create the new service. So the other thing I showed like, hey, how we can override our service, right? So for that I did a CRT sample here. So I modified the customer search. So for example, you have like a scenario where I want to search my customer locally in the AX as well as in a CRM system, right? So in this case, what you want to do is you want to override our customer search flow. So what you need to do is you need to find what is the exact request I should override it. So for here, if I come here, so I have put like a now saying like, hey, don't call the standard Microsoft customer search request, call this overridden one. So then the extension knows like, okay, there is some request has been overridden, so don't call the standard, so it will call this new overridden request. So here in this scenario, either you can completely write your own search functionality, or you can call our search functionality and then tweak something within that, or filter the result, change something, right? So here for example, I am just first calling the external system here. That external system method just here, if I come here in the external search method, it does nothing, just like return a hard-coded result. And after that, I want to call the standard customer search and then finally union the result and send it back. So now if I search for this particular customer, I will see like two results. It will get from the local DB as well as from executing the standard, and also will get the customer search. So if I show a quick demo of it, so if I go to POS and then say like I search for this particular customer here, now it's going to show like two results here, because we are calling the local as well as the external search. So you can decide on your scenario whether I need to change something or I need to call the standard and then tweak something on that. Also you can do by overriding it, or you can do a pre and post triggers also. I will quickly show a trigger also, how you can extend it, because that's the other one I mentioned. And either you can override or you can do trigger or create a new service. So for the triggers, we can still again take the attribute sample here. Implementing the trigger is straightforward. Just see like, hey, which request I want to implement trigger. You will extend from my request trigger and say like, whenever suspended a cart, I need to like do something on the post suspended. I need to set some attribute value, right? So you will put like on executing is kind of like a pre, on executed it has like post. So the interface has like two methods, pre and post. So you can do whatever the business logic you. So that's how you will extend our trigger. So I will go back to the deck. So we saw how to create like new CRT service. So we covered like how will you create like a new service, how will you do pre and post, and also like within that one how you can implement the request response. Similarly in the override, how you can override it, right? That's a demo for CRT. I think the retail server, again, it has like two patterns. Either you can create an entity and then return the result, or just do something and just run like a simple result also. So the store hours is kind of like returning an entity, or in some cases you just want to say, I just want to return a decimal value, I don't want an entity. It supports like both the kind of that API. So for that also, like in the SDK, there is a sample which shows you like how to do that extension. Either you can do like a simple OData API or an entity based API also. So depends on your scenario, you can choose it. If you check the retail SDK, the store as retail server is like entity based. There is one more sample called cross loyalty, which is like kind of just return like a simple discount value scenario. Okay, so we saw the demo for retail server. So other important thing is I will talk about like the channel DB extension. So previously, if you want to add new table, or say for example in the transaction table, if you want to add more field, what you would do is like you will take our table and add new fields, right? Now with the new sealed model, you should not modify any of our schema here, either AX, all our tables will be either in AX schema or the CRT schema, right? Or the DBO schema. So you should not like touch any of the schema. So for extension, we introduce something called the EXT schema. So any extension you do, you should do that in the EXT schema. Either you create a new table or new view or new procedure function, whatever, you should do it from the EXT schema. You should not like do it from our standard schema. And other important thing is, you should not access any of your procedure views or function from your EXT schema. You should use the CRT data service to do it. That's other important change. I will say like why we did this change. Suppose from your new procedure, you are calling our existing view, say for example in the show journal screen, I want to show a custom column. So what you generally do is like you within your extension view, you will call our view and merge the result and send it, right? So the problem is later when we change this view to do something else, then it will break your customization. That's why what we did was like we exposed everything as a CRT data service, because the service is nothing but just going to return a contract saying like this are the list of information. Because we added like a backward compatibility, make sure our contract doesn't change going forward in the future. So any extension you do, you should do it at the CRT. If you're calling something our information, you should call it from the CRT data service. And something if you're new, if you're doing it, you should do it from the EXT schema. And also to support the extension, we introduce new roles like a EXT user role and EXT deploy role. So all your extension should have those two roles so that your extension can access our DB and do something. If you want to call anything of ours, use the CRT data service. Okay. I will quickly show a code demo how we can call it. So here there is a warranty sample here. So for example here like in the retail parameters, I added one more new field, right, and I want to call that information. Previously in order to do that, you will call our show journal view, retail parameters view and then do it, right? Now you should not do at that level, so you should do that the data service level. For example, here if I come all the way down, so there is a data service request, something called like retail configuration parameter data service request. So you should call our request and then access all our information. Don't do anything, because there is a corresponding view in SQL like get retail parameters view. Don't call that in the SQL, use our data service so that in the future all your customization will continue to work. Even we, say for example, currently we are using SQL, right? Retail, now you move to CDS, still your customization should work, right? That's why we are saying like call it from the data service level. So later when we change from Azure Fabric or we move something different also, we want to make sure all your customization continuously to work. That's why you should extend our data service. You should not do anything at the DB layer level. That's why we made like all our CRT as like a data service. So anything you want to customize, this data service will expose a primary key and all the related information. So using that, see now after I'm getting the data service, I will query my custom table and then I can get that information, which you can do it from the EXT. That's other important change we did. So here in the show journal screen in the pause, so if I go to home view, so if I click the show journal, so for example, we have extended this view to made like a data customized, you want to get some information or whatever, right? So you can extend our data service and do all those information without touching our view. So you should not, the best pattern is like, you should not call our AX schema or any DB artifact from your extension, use the data service, and all your new extension should go to the EXT schema. That's the other important thing we did. Let me switch back to the deck. And the last thing I want to show is like how will you extend the retail proxy. So for the retail proxy, you no need to write any code. So what we did was like we introduced the commerce generator. The retail proxy is the one which decides, hey, should I go online? Should I call the retail server to get the information? Or if there is some connectivity down, how will I call my offline service, right? So the retail proxy is the one which decides. And what it does is like it put like automated generated code. for your extension also, it should work. For our code, it knows like, hey, if somebody click get customer, it knows like which request to call and whether it knows like where to map it, right, online or off. For your extension also to work both in online and offline, you should extend the retail proxy. So for the online one, for the online mode, there is automated exe, commerce generator.exe. So the parameter this exe is there in the retail SDK folder. So you will pass this parameter to that exe. Call the exe and saying like this is the retail and this is my extension file. So what it does is like it will generate automatically the proxy file for you, and then in your extension you just need to include this file. I will quickly show you how I will include. And then for the offline mode, it's like a C# proxy, which will also like automatically generate that proxy for you. I will quickly show a demo. I think I showed the channel DB demo. I will quickly show how the retail proxy one works. Oops. So this is the C# proxy here. So here there is a text statement. You will just specify your data model here, and then if you build it, it will generate the proxy. Then you can just implement the interface. This is how you will do it. It's like straightforward. You will do it for the C# scenario for the offline. The C# project is for the offline, and for the online, as I said, like you'll use the exe. And for example, if I show my store sample, which is something I need to generate a proxy, right? Because it's a new feature, POS doesn't know how to call it. So for that here, in the modern POS here, if I go under the store as, so here under the data service, so for example, it will generate these two new files. When you call that commerce exe with a parameter, so it will generate these two files. So it has nothing, just the entity information, whatever the entity you created in the CRT, right? You're saying like these are the table request list of field names, right? Your POS should also know that, because the business logic in CRT, how POS will know is like based on this proxy. So it will generate that automated file so that you now can call the CRT request, retail server request directly from the, because all are different entity, right? Retail server is different, CRT is different. How POS will know like this is the web service URL I need to call. So based on this proxy, it will give that metadata to POS and you can call it. So you don't need to write any code for this one. Just call that exe, generate the file and include it in your project. That's it. You can automatically then call the proxy. Okay. So this is how we'll do for the C# TypeScript, which is for the calling retail server. For the offline mode, you will use the C# proxy. Okay. So I will go back to the deck. I think we quickly saw the channel DB. The last one I want to cover, like if you're creating like a new hardware device extension, suppose like you want to connect to a new check printer. Say out of the box we support like printer, barcode scanner, MSR, payment device, right? So if you want to integrate completely with a new device, say like a coin dispenser, whenever I do some transaction, I want to dispense the change as a coin, or I want to do a check printing scanner, you can do the hardware station extension. The important change we did was we changed this also to a new request response pattern. From the create wise, you can create like a new device extension, or you can do new operation. New operation is like, say in our existing device printer, we don't support like a ping test. Whenever your POS loads, you want to make sure printer is running, which is kind of a ping test, right? To our existing service, if you want to add something new, you can do like a new operation to the existing, or you can add a pre and post trigger also for the hardware station. Or other thing you can do is like you can completely override. I don't want to use your print request. I want to completely call my own print request, or I want to completely do my own payment device integration. So you can also completely override our functionality. So this is the pattern we support for overriding extension. Okay. So I think in the interest of time, I will quickly show the code, how we can do that one. So I have this sample hardware station project. So for example, I put like a sample here. Anyway, like I don't have the simulator running here, so I'm not able to show the demo. But if you want, like as I said, like in the line display, I want to show some my own custom display text. I don't want, for example, if you go to any retail store, you will see that pole or line display, right? I want to customize what them, by default in our product, we just show item and price. So now you want to show like item, the price, and then some more total quantity or like the total price. You can like override our display method here. So for example, here I have overridden our display text. So if you see, there will be like a display text method here, and then you can write the logic here, like hey, what on all the information you want to say. Say I'm saying like text to display. You can change what are the information. This is how you will add a new operation or override it. Suppose if you want to do some new device integration, we added a sample like a remote order display. Remote order display is nothing like if you go to any restaurant and order something, you will see like a kitchen display which shows your order, right? So kind of something like a new device you want to extend, you can do that. Same, it's the pattern wise, it's same. You will just create a request and then you will create a controller. and then we'll create the corresponding logic class here. So for example, here in the display device, I think it will have like a display method, remote order display here. So if you, for example, the remote order display is going to display, as soon as you add item in the cart, you can call this device and then it will show that information. If you add you can decide when to call it. To call it from the pause, it's just like a simple, there is a suspend transaction sample which will show you how to call it, just like a peripherals dot execute, just pause this operation name, that's it, pause will automatically call the hardware station. So that's how you will extend for the hardware station. I will go back to the deck. So we saw the quick code demo of like how you can do the hardware station extension. The last thing I want to, sorry I said like multiple times the last one, but I think this is the final one. So once you're done with all the customization, how will you package the code, right? So one important thing was there is a combined retail package. To generate the package, we added in the build tools. So you can just call our build tools to generate the package. So for example, this is the Microsoft POS project. And then there is, you can have like ISV extension project or your partner extension, any number of extension. You'll specify all that information in the settings file. And then when you run MPOS, the build tool, it will generate like one single package for you, which you can like test it and then deploy to the production. To deploy to the production, you will upload that to the asset library in LCS, and then clicking whichever environment you want to apply, just go to your environment, click apply, it will automatically deploy this latest package. So this package, I showed here only the modern POS, but this package can include all your retail server customization, CRT, hardware station. So all those can be included in this package, and then you can generate the build. Okay. So I think for this demo, I will just quickly show what is the command to run. I already have this. So here you just need to like do ms build, go to the root retail SDK folder, and then just do ms build, and then if you hit enter, it will generate the package for you, that's it. And if you go to the retail SDK, it will take like 3-4 minutes to generate the package. So inside the retail SDK code, you will see the packages folder here. So there will be like a retail deployable package generated for you. So you can just take this zip file and then upload it to LCS. So uploading to LCS is also like straightforward. So if I go to LCS, select whichever environment you have, and then, so there will be asset library here. One second. Once the package is generated, if you click the asset library, and then you can select the software deployable package, and then you can add that zip file here. Then once you go inside your environment, it will show these packages, and then you can just click apply. So for example, like I don't have any environment in this one, but it's like the standard existing from the say X7. We didn't change anything on this one. Just one thing we changed it as like we made it as like a simple deployable package. Okay, I'll go back to the deck. Yeah, I think this engagement model is, because since we added sealed and then we added a lot of extension point, right? For some scenarios, there may be extension point would be missing. So in your case, for any scenario, if you found like, hey, I want to like, because the custom column app bar I showed it, it's not enabled in all of the views, only in few views we have enabled it. Suppose for your scenario in picking receiving screen, I want to add app bar button, there is no extension point currently available. So for any of your scenario, if you find like, hey, there is extension point missing, I'm not able to customize it, then you can share that information to us. Then we will do like, if it's analyze and design, if something required, we will implement for you and then tell like, hey, this is the date the extension point will be available for you, and then you can do that customization. If it is already available, then we can say like, we'll reply back to you saying like, hey, it's already available, you can do the customization. So this is like kind of the template, how will you share, and you can send this information, email to this email address. So then we'll reply back to you saying like, once you send the requirement, you will analyze and say like, hey, already there's extension available. If not, when it will be available, we can give that information to you. Okay. Since we sealed it, we want to make sure like everybody is able to customize it. That's why we started this engagement model. And also we are doing like bi-monthly like kind of a workshop also, where you can bring your dev team, and then you can, it's not more like a training, it's more like you bring your dev team to Redmond like in Seattle, and then we will help you in doing the customization. So you can become to us like 2-3 days, and then we'll help you like how you can do those customization. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So this is like a quick survey. So you can provide us like feedback, because we want to make sure like we utilize your time as like best as possible. So if you want to provide some more feedback, you can go to the survey link and then provide the session feedback. I'll leave it here. Okay, that's it. I think we are on time. Thanks everyone. So do you have any questions, anything? Yeah.
One quick question.
Yeah.
The interfaces for payment provider, iPayment processor, iPayment, those things stay the same? You know, where you drop those, basically you write those interfaces and then drop those DLLs and those folders.
Yeah.
Is that stay, those couple of interfaces staying the same?
Yeah. So the question is like the payment for the payment device extension for the hardware station, whether that interface iPayment device are still the same or it still exists. Yeah. So it still exists in the same pattern. So even in the SDK, you will see the sample for the MX925 device. It's still the same interface. Same, you can extend like a new device or new payment connector. It's still supported. It's still there. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't change anything on that payment layer. One change we did is like from the POS, if you want to call that new payment device with some more parameter something, you can override our request and do it. Yeah. Previously, you would have like did inline changes to call the payment device, right? Now we will just call our new pattern, follow the new pattern, and do the extension. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Please do provide feedback for us, like if you need like more sessions like this, or if you want like too much content or something, we can take the feedback and best make sure like the next session will make it like more productive. Okay. Okay. Thanks everyone. Yep.